Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Selling Fort Collins podcast. I am here with Carl Pratt, the general manager of the Elizabeth Hotel in Old Town Fort Collins. Carl, welcome.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. Appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, really appreciate you being here. Let's get right into it. We talked a little bit before we started rolling, but what's your background? How did you end up in Fort Collins?
Well, my background is New England. I was there for 57, almost 60 years. I grew up in Vermont. Spent some time in Western Massachusetts on the border of New York, Lenox, Massachusetts, and raised my family there. And we had an opportunity to move to Tucson, Arizona for Miraval Resort. And so I ended up there for a couple of years, and then I did some senior living there. As we were thinking about heading back to where we might go next, we decided that we were not going to go back to New England. The weather out here is west side of the country, southwest was too spectacular. A lot of sunshine, a lot of great days, and no bugs. So we started looking for places, and then this job came up. It was a little bit of a whim. I don't have brand experience. All of the properties that I worked, all the hospitality that I was in, was health, wellness, and independent properties. And as a result, I didn't think that maybe it was a shot. So went through the process, and they offered me the job. So here I am, along with my wife, and our kids are now, one's in Portland, Oregon, and one's in Sacramento, California. So they followed us. So we're now at least on one coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Tell us about Miraval Resorts, and I know that's in the luxury category. I think there's
Yeah.
some senior living there in Tucson. What's that place like?
So Miraval Resort and Canyon Ranch are similar in the sense that they're a health wellness destination. So my background is in exercise science and wellness.
Okay.
I started out at Canyon Ranch in 1989. Didn't even know what it was, and it was an opening in Lenox, Massachusetts. So it's a location where you go and you really find out more than sometimes you want to know. I had one person say to me somewhere along his stay, he said, I didn't know I was sick as I was until I got here. So really what it was more about discovering and identifying areas of health that would be critical to be aware of, and then move towards a lifestyle of prevention. So we did everything. We had multiple physicians. We had 5 or 6 physicians and behavioral psychologists, and physiologists and nutritionists. We had about 50 activities a day, whether it be fitness or lectures or programs around how you can live a healthier lifestyle. So I was there for 17 years, and then I went to Miraval. After a little bit of a break from that, I went to a more traditional hotel in Hanover, New Hampshire, and then back in the Berkshires at Cranwell Resort, which was a golf and spa resort. Miraval is a little less serious. So Canyon Ranch didn't at the time serve alcohol. Miraval does, and it's a more relaxed sense of not as much science behind it, but just as impactful, depending on what you're looking for. So I spent a couple years there, and then senior living in the midst of COVID, and the incredibly rewarding, but not exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my career.
Right. We're talking about many, many years of kind of intense hospitality here. This is not just hospitality in the sense of, hey, make people feel welcome, make them feel comfortable, give them a short itinerary of some things they can do for lunch, dinner, coffee. This is into the healthcare category, into the wellness category. This is a really full spectrum. So you're bringing to Fort Collins here, you're bringing to the Elizabeth a background that's pretty robust in things that go beyond traditional hospitality.
Yeah, I think it's really the connections, right? It's the rapport you build. It's the conversations that you have that will go a little further beyond what people are sometimes not so much willing, but when you start a conversation, it's really easy to start moving in a place where you find more meaning behind it. So there's conversations that I've had with people at the hotel who then invited me to met somebody who was with Rotary. So I did 2 talks on health and wellness for the 2 different Rotary groups here in Fort Collins. And that was just a passing conversation as I went through the dining room and said hello to people. So it's little bits like that make a difference in far as connecting and also building a sense of community within the Elizabeth.
Yeah, yeah. One thing we talked about before we started rolling was a conversation I had about a month ago in here with the mayor and the president of our Chamber of Commerce, and one of them coined this term, Fort Collins nice. People here are nice. What has been your experience in Fort Collins so far with the people, with the guests? I mean, how would you kind of summarize that?
It is that sense of people are really comfortable. And when they walk into the Elizabeth, there's also this expectation that we have to fulfill. The very nicely curated spaces, if we go below that, then it's a disappointment. So I think we have expectations that are higher than some. And as a result, our goal every day is to be sure that we're going beyond the expectation and finding ways to create a sense of place and a memory. So it was, I think last year, there was a family that was with us, and there was 3 kids that were kind of playing around in the lobby, and I just said hello, and I asked them what their favorite sport was, and they said soccer. And so on my way home, I picked up some soccer balls, the mini ones, so that and I brought them in the next day for them. And what that is there's 2 pieces to that, right? One is to recognize that guest for who they are. The other is if you have your kids who are having a good time, then the parents are having a better time. And when they go home, they'll remember the Elizabeth Hotel because of that soccer ball that might be stuffed in the corner of the garage one day, and they go back and pick it up and play with it. So they'll remember that experience through that just small little touch of connecting.
I mean, what do you think makes the Elizabeth, when we're talking about the aesthetics and we're talking about the hospitality and things you're bringing from your background, but if we switch over to the aesthetics, we talked about, again, before we started rolling, how beautiful it is, how all these spaces are connected. I mean, how would you describe that for people who haven't been there? A quick aside, when I get asked, which I do a lot, hey, where should I stay? When I'm coming to town, it's a really quick, you got to stay at the Elizabeth. I think I told you, I stay there myself for my quarterly retreats, and it's a 10-minute drive from my house. So that's how much I like it. I could go somewhere else, but I don't. I go there. It's beautiful. Explain the space to people who haven't been there.
Yeah, it's this sense of real intention.
Mm-hmm.
So each space is, you walk in and you already know that it was thought about really carefully, and each one is different. It's well defined. So Magic Rat, which is our live music venue, feels very different than the Emporium, where it's a lot more light.
Which is the restaurant.
Is the restaurant, yeah, and much more light, and finishes are just a little bit up from that. But the lighting in Emporium has a marquee feel to it, as does, of course, Magic Rat, which has a marquee in it. So there's these subtle subconscious aspects that associate with the spaces, and you walk in, one's a bit different, but you still feel like you're in the Elizabeth. And Sunset Lounge, of course, which is our rooftop bar on the 5th floor, a 180-degree view of Fort Collins, both day and night, are as spectacular as the other. And it has paneling that's similar to in our function rooms, in our meeting rooms, that, again, you wouldn't really hold on to. But when you go to the Sunset Lounge, you think, what's different? What's the same? And the artwork, too, is all very carefully thought about. And Bowerbird Coffee Shop, just a nice, comfortable place to come in and have some Wi-Fi service and have a cup of coffee. So there's all these. I think there's I'm trying to find elegance isn't the word, but comfortability and style, I think, are really the 2 words that I would put together for the Elizabeth. That it's really comfortable, but it has a really nice style to it, and there's no pretense to it. There's no sense of I shouldn't be here. Anybody can walk in and feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I tell you, if you're a local listening to this too, if you have someone visiting from out of town, take them there to, go into Elizabeth, and you'll get directed to where to go to get up to the rooftop bar, to the Sunset Lounge. There's an elevator. You walk through the Magic Rat, but it just feels so cool because your guests are like, where are we going? Like, this feels exclusive. This feels exciting. And you go, you have to wait. You wait for the elevator, it comes down, and then you take the elevator up, you get off. And if you hit this at the right time, it's called the Sunset Lounge because it's an amazing place to see the sunset. You're standing there, floor to ceiling windows. You all have live music there.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So we have jazz pianists on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We are open 7 days a week. We just started opening 7 days a week in January.
Okay.
The 6th of January. So we're getting some traction and people are using us more often, along with our guests, of course. But it's true with the lobby and then to Emporium. If you come into the front lobby, there's a very dark maroon paint and lighting, and we call it the library. And it's this space that it's a very intentional transition from the hotel lobby to Emporium, that you're moving into a new space. And that it's interesting because it almost slows you down because there's so much bright light in the lobby and then bright light in Emporium. There's almost, again, this sort of sense I'm going somewhere new. And it is maybe portal is too strong a word to use, but it has that feeling.
Yeah. I think if someone is really looking for inspiration for a home remodel or doing something, like just going into these different spaces at the Elizabeth is a really good idea. I mean, it gives you a feeling. I mean, this boutique hotel feeling is pretty incredible. You mentioned the event spaces briefly. So I think that's something a lot of people aren't familiar with. What kind of events are you hosting there? I know I walk by those different rooms and I'm going down that hallway between the Emporium and the main lobby there. I see these very, very nice rooms. I'm not sure what type of events you're hosting. Would love to hear more about that.
So we have groups that would range from 150 down to 5. And we have 4 space. We can split the spaces into 4. Otherwise, it'd be 2 rooms. So there's air walls that split those spaces. So we have a lot of flexibility as far as size and then the number of groups and those that we can accommodate. So PowerPoint presentations, full AV, all that sort of thing that would be of interest for folks with corporate groups, retreats. And we also have utilized Sunset Lounge for executive retreats. So really nice, non-traditional space. We can still do the PowerPoint, that sort of thing, but more relaxed. I think that it oftentimes creates a deeper conversation just spontaneously because people are more relaxed and not behind a table. And
is the bar open during the retreats?
Well, we can open the bar for sure.
All right.
And so there's a lot of different ways it can be used. And I think that, and what we'll have some groups do, they'll move through all the spaces. So they might have a meeting of 120 people. Then Magic Rat, we would have a reception, or some portion of the group would be up in Sunset Lounge. And we also do weddings in Sunset Lounge, small weddings. Of course, we have about 50 people. Magic Rat, we have weddings in Magic Rat as well, so it can be reserved for a private event. We also have a terrace, which is on the 2nd floor, and that has space for, generally it's used for reception or a ceremony. So there's the non-traditional spaces are very attractive to families and couples these days. So the upside is we have this fantastic space that, of course, we put the names of those that are enjoying the space up on the marquee just to make it a little bit special. And we'll have people come in and do engagements. So I think there is that differentiator that creates that ability to satisfy a lot of people in their interests as far as gathering in one place for a variety of reasons.
And, before we move on past introducing people to what the hotel is and, some of the amenities there, I also want to touch on this Michelin key. I mean, you received a Michelin key. I think this was a recent deal.
Yeah, just a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
I think we have a lot of goals that we work on every single day in regards to connecting with guests, having that experience be something special and memorable. I do think we have. I've been in one or two other hotels that the space was something to overcome. This is not one of those. So I do think the spaces, how they're laid out, how it feels, that was a big one up for us. It's also a great story. We're a music themed hotel, so we have record players in all the guest rooms, and
Right.
we have vinyl for them to borrow throughout their stay.
Yeah, if you're all of you listening, you can pick out a vinyl record at the main floor. There's this really cool room you have right across from the check-in desk. Bring that record up to your room.
Yeah, and it's so from my generation. So I'm 62, and I remember going to record stores, right, and just flipping through and looking for that record that I was thinking about next. And when I watch the guests do that, I know they're somewhere else, right? There's a memory that's putting them back in a point of nostalgia. And those are the kinds of things that make hospitality that experience that is different at the Elizabeth, because we're bringing people back to another memory, but we're also reminding them of who they were and what they enjoyed. And it's also a pause. It's stopping and thinking about something else. From what you're there for, whether you're there for a business meeting, whether you're there for a wedding, or whether you're there for just having a good time. And of course, the kids are great because they've never seen one. Oftentimes, they've never seen an album. They've never seen a record player. So that sense of fun and discovery on some level is another a big part of that. And that's where the hospitality of health wellness destinations, they were experiencing a fitness class or a hike, and it was taking them out of their pattern, right? It's breaking their pattern of their thinking. And I think that's one of the most unique aspects and the most critical aspects to the hotel in that experience, where we're breaking people's patterns in their thought process.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that leads me to, with your background, you've seen a lot of impressive places. A beautiful,
really fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, a beautiful hotel isn't something new to you. I think there's something special about a beautiful hotel inside of a unique city, inside of one of the best downtowns anywhere in the world. It creates something special. But before we move completely on from the hotel, what's your favorite thing about the place? Is there a hidden gem here that even locals, even someone like me, who's doing his quarterly retreats there, wouldn't know?
Yeah. So the artwork is, unless you stop and look at the description, you might miss the opportunity of what that is. So on the first floor elevator lobby, there's this very large, what looks like a blanket, if you will, and that's a poor description because it's much more spectacular and elegant than that. But it's crocheted cassette tape. And it's huge, and it's amazing because it looks like it's almost you wouldn't even know what it is. But then if you stop and you look at it, and you think it's so huge, like how long did that take to crochet? And who thought about that? Who thought of taking probably hundreds and hundreds of feet of cassette tape and crocheting them, right? I mean, there's just that, and on the second floor lobby, elevator lobby, there's vinyl records that are stacked and then cut on edge. And there's three pieces that create that. So I think the surprises along the way are, again, taking a moment to take a look at what is this. It's not just a piece of art. It's music themed. It's somebody who has created something out of what they just thought would be a great thing to do. And that sense of really a sense of wonder on some level. So when I look at, every time I look at that piece where it's a crocheted cassette tape, I'm just wondering, where did all that come from? Where did that thought process come? And how fantastic that it is in a hotel with a music theme, and it all connects. So there's all these dots that you connect along the way that make it feel just like a special experience that you wouldn't have in another hotel.
Yeah. I mean, the Michelin key, you're also part of the Marriott autograph collection. I mean, there are all these things, and that's all very, very impressive. And I know everyone that I have ever talked to that has stayed there after I've made the recommendation is just like wow, And I would put myself in this category. When you see a Marriott autographing and then you read about the Michelin key and all these things, you have an expectation it's going to be nice, but you're touching on some of these things that are unique and that really play into the fabric of our community, of Old Town. Everything was very, very intentional. As we move past, some of these features of the hotel and go into the community a little bit, what do you think special about Fort Collins? Let's maybe tell the listeners how long you've lived here and a few things that have really, maybe impressed you, maybe it jumped out at you about the community so far.
Well, I've been here for just about 3 years, and I think that there's a couple things that really connect with me. One, in New England, there's town after town after town, small towns where I was primarily in Vermont and in Western Massachusetts, 5,000, maybe 7,000 people, but each has a different personality. And you go to those towns for those different experiences. So I found that to be true here. So if you're going to Greeley, then there's a reason you're going to Greeley. You're going to Windsor, or you're going to Fort Collins, or you're going to Loveland. Any one of these places has a special little feeling to them. And each differentiates itself with who they are and what they're offering on the retail side and on the bars and restaurants. But there's so many business owners, and I think there's only one or two brands in downtown Fort Collins and any other town that I've been in. And as a result, there's a real value in connecting with those folks. One, they're very interested and would love to tell their story and help you along the way. And what I found and what we were talking about earlier is this idea that it's just all the friendly people moved here. And I think it's that sort of that attraction. If you want to be in a friendly place and you're a friendly person, then that's what you do. And I think that's true of our associates as well. We have some wonderful staff that are part of CSU. We have quite a number of CSU students in the hospitality program, but we also have a significant number of staff that have been here for their whole life. And they all mix together. They all create a culture and a feeling and a community within the hotel. And I think that that's true of outside of the hotel. It just repeats itself wherever you go. It's interesting. Burlington, Vermont has a similar downtown, and I think it was the same. I haven't gone down to the fine detail of the same urban design group, but it has almost an identical feel with a walking downtown, and it's a college town and on down the line. So there's a lot of things that are reminiscent for me from New England. And yet at the same time, you have a little bit of this West casual feel that makes it just that much more comfortable.
Where do you see this going? You've traveled a lot, you've seen a lot, particularly in the hospitality industry. I think that's an industry in your line of work that takes you different places where you get to see special things. Where do you see this going here? Now you've been here for 3 years. Where do you see Old Town going the next 5, 10, 15 years? Do you see it being densifying? Do you see it being a version of any particular other area that you visited?
It feels like it should be the way it is.
Yeah.
There's certainly the population is growing here. I'm part of the that group that got here 3 years ago and part of a new development and a new built a new house. And I think there's still room for more growth. And I think that that's going to happen whether we like it or not. But I think it's impressive, really, with the amount of growth that has happened in 20 years, 30 years, it still has held its personality and it hasn't let it be disrupted to the point where it feels taken over. And I think that that's critical to the future. And as you walk in Old Town and in downtown Fort Collins, every place is a different place. It's not that same. It's interesting. Of the places I've been in the country, you can find a Walmart on every corner. You can find a Walgreens on every other corner. And here you come and you go, oh, that's all. I can put that away. and then it's a point of discovery. Then you're looking for that special item, or you're looking for that special experience, or whatever it might be. And it's going to be different, but the quality and the feeling of care and thought that's gone into so many of these sole proprietors, with an immense amount of work and time, has really, it's felt. You can really feel it's really something they've worked hard at, and they care about a great deal.
Yeah. I mean, a few trends that you might be interested in too, just as the general manager of the hotel here, is one thing I track is where people are coming here from, to live. And a lot of times, they're coming here to visit first, right? But where are they moving here from? And one way and I think the best way I've found so far is to really see where the clicks are coming from on Fort Collins listings. And there are analytical tools you can actually use to see that. And if you look at the Denver area and you look at Fort Collins, right now, out of all the clicks on listings in Fort Collins, about 27% of all the clicks are coming from the Denver area. And that's a 450% increase from 5 years ago, which is just huge. So a lot of people are coming from Denver. Another interesting trend, there are people who are starting to summer in Fort Collins, who are buying second homes here. And where are they coming from? A lot of people, well, they're coming from California, actually Arizona. And it makes sense, right? It's very hot in the valley. Tucson's hot too, but the valley, Phoenix, Scottsdale, about 13% of all the clicks are coming from the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. And that's the biggest feeder market for Fort Collins. So these are just a couple things that are kind of feeding this, trend. I'm also curious. I wanted to talk to you about how does CSU, that's Colorado State University, these other big, impressive employers we have in Fort Collins, Woodward, Governor, HP, Intel, AMD, Otterbox, there's many, many more. How do they affect the tourism, the hospitality industry here?
Yeah, it's dramatic. I mean, it really is. It's one of the hotels I was working at was at Dartmouth College, and it was owned and operated by the college at the time. And it was a constant feed of people coming in with their kids, coming to visit the college, enjoying the time, alumni, et cetera, et cetera. But what it does is it maintains this perpetual people coming to visit the town. And I've also been in towns where there is no college. And in the Berkshires of Massachusetts, there was Springfield College, which was really much more east. And then you go to Northampton, Massachusetts, which is a college town with 5 colleges around it, Smith and UMass and on down the line. Completely different demographic and completely different experience, because the colleges bring so much to the experience of the downtown just with the students, but then what all that brings along with it, with the intellectual property, if you will, with this experience of the programs that they run. And we have with the vet school, a considerable number, because they do programs around continuing education. And so we have a lot of people coming in for that. And each time that person comes here for something else, they do what many do, is they start thinking about, well, this is a fantastic place, and a place I might want to live. So colleges do that. I think businesses do that naturally. And I think part of the reason we had the Potato Council come to the Elizabeth, which is an association, the Western Potato Council, all potato farmers. And the reason they came was because the president of the Potato Council that year was a CSU alumni, and he not only wanted to come back to the town, but also set up a program so that all of these individuals could go to CSU to enjoy the program, and take a tour and hear about the latest research. Those are the kinds of things that make this town special. And for the hotel and for businesses, it makes it a program that, or makes it an opportunity for us to have that continue to be how Fort Collins is driving business to the hotel and all the retailers in downtown and everywhere else.
Well, and for those of you who don't know, Colorado State University has the preeminent veterinary program in the country.
Yeah, it's number 2 in the country.
Number 2, and I know they've fluctuated. Penn and CSU, they've gone back and forth 1 and 2 over the years. But yeah, it's a top
Yeah.
vet school in the country, drawing people from all over the world, not just the country.
Yeah,
CSU's
right.
vet school is soon going to get a $300+ million project there. Just more improvements from the equine center to everything else. Celebrities have been brought into town.
Yeah.
By the CSU vet school. David Letterman was here not that long ago, I believe, with his dog, a few other celebrity sightings too.
For treatment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's such a difference. And the other thing, in the excitement, right? The excitement of the students coming back, and then reunions and graduations and homecoming and all those things. It also is it's a really nice feel of seasonality, right? There's this excitement that the students are coming back, and then you have that little bit of a lull in the wintertime on break, and then the students are coming back. So it's a really nice cycle, and a college drives that cycle to some degree. Traffic's a little higher, right? When school is in session, but then it drops off, and then you got an easy ride wherever you're going. But it's so critical for a hotel. There's an awful lot of just opening the door, even if we weren't an autograph collection. Although it's good to have a brand behind you.
Sure.
We just open the door and people are coming. So that's a big plus for us,
right,
on a lot of levels.
Yeah, and you mentioned busier during certain times of the year. What's your favorite season in Fort Collins? I mean, what if someone is looking to visit here? What season would you tell them? What's your favorite? I personally know I'm biased.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a bad one. But I'm curious.
It's very true. I think that's the interesting thing is, I think it's probably a personal attachment to New England falls because they're so spectacular with foliage, and it's generally a little bit of a break from some humidity. Here, you don't have to worry about that any day of the year. I would say the winter is right. You're going to have we get a little bit of a cold snap, but then expect 35 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees, but the sun's out. And that's the difference. So I think you're right. I think there's not a bad season. And for me, fall is just nostalgic. So and that homecoming scenario and on down the line has a feeling about. I would go to football games in the fall with family to college, down to Dartmouth or wherever we go. So there's all these little bits that associate with it. But I will say the winters here are so easy and enjoyable. I could ride my bike, right, almost any day of the year. But I'm walking outside every day, and sometimes it's 5:30 in the morning and it's 20 degrees and it's still fine. So that without the humidity, temperatures aren't quite as intense. So it's just spectacular. I mean, and the time to be able to enjoy that outdoors is every day.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose one, I'd probably go fall too, just because it's, the leaves are changing color and you can walk to the football stadium really from downtown if you want to. There's an on-campus football stadium, for those of you who don't know, at Colorado State University, and CSU's campus is adjacent to our downtown, to our Old Town area. You can actually walk there. It's a great walk. You can do, brunch. There's something special about the fall season. And, the summer season, of course, you have the festivals and the breweries. Is that anything you've gotten to experience so far? You have FOCO MX, the music festival. I mean, you have all of the things happening at the breweries. From the parade that down Mountain Avenue that who Belgium puts on.
Yeah, I think that there's a ton of we get a little bit of feedback sometimes that our rooms are a little small, and frankly, it's by design. And not everybody loves that, but the idea is that both the hotel itself, there's so many spaces to get outside and enjoy. You should not be spending time in your room. And then if you take it one half a block further, there's so much in Old Town, and then just another, right, couple more steps and you're in downtown. There's no reason anybody should be sitting in their room in a hotel in Fort Collins.
Right.
And unless you're spinning a record. But I think that there's and it's going to be unexpected, right? You're going to find something unusual. You're going to find something that is unique and special to you and to the area. So the sense of discovery should be brought along with you when you come to Fort Collins.
Touching on that music scene a little bit too, what's fascinating to me about what you've done with the hotel is it seems like you guys kind of just gelled right into the music scene with the Magic Rat. You've mentioned the Magic Rat a few times. It's a part of the hotel, but it's the music venue. And how do you program that? Because that place is rocking every time I'm going by, in the summer particularly. How did that work out so well? Because it just seems like that went from this new place to being a standing room only place to see a show.
Yeah, well, actually, it has a lot to do with Bohemian Foundation. They still support us as part of that commitment that they have to the community and to the Elizabeth. That we never charge a cover, and it's very intentional through Bohemian Foundation to have music and have places to gather, and that is something I think. It's important to everybody to understand that we don't charge a cover because we want to be sure that there's a place where you could just come and enjoy. And also the idea of a shared experience is really critical for us too. So the hope is that when guests are sitting in Magic Rat or sipping a cocktail or one of our zero proof cocktails in Sunset or one of our spaces, that they maybe exchange a glance and then say hello to each other. And the idea of connecting visitors to our local community guests is something I think is as much a part of the Elizabeth, because both we hope will come and enjoy, and I hope share some stories among each other. So that sense of community is really intentional, and that's what Magic Rat is very much a part of. It's easier there, I suppose, because it's set up for with long couches and spaces that you might be sitting next to somebody that you don't know, and it can happen in Sunset, but it's much easier in Magic Rat. So I think that's the hope. The hope is to be sure the community is fully engaged with our visitors, and our visitors are engaging with our community guests, because that's what makes it a memorable time.
Well, they are. I mean, without question, they are. It's working.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give everybody the hack right here is if they're going to stay at the hotel. Here's what you do, because I've stayed there many times. You do dinner at the Emporium. You really can't go wrong. I love to get a steak, and then go up to the Sunset Lounge, watch the sunset. Do a martini, do an old fashioned, do something that's going to test, if you are a drinker, that is going to test the skills of the bartender. You will not be disappointed. They are world class. So if you want a place where they can really make a good drink, that is the place. You'll have an amazing experience up there. You'll see the sunset. You'll look out over Old Town Fort Collins, and then after the sun's down, go back downstairs, catch a show, live music at the Magic Rat. To your point, you're gonna get to know people. You might be with people, you might be in a group, but it's just a cozy, friendly atmosphere.
Yeah, and again, because all the friendly people live here.
Yep.
If you're a visitor, then you can be safe to talk to that person who's beside you, and probably have a really stimulating conversation that you didn't think you would be experiencing.
Yeah.
And then in the morning you go down and have a cup of coffee in Bowerbird. But
I was gonna say get coffee, and then do the egg sandwich with the greens next to it. That's a
right.
really that's such a solid way to start the day. I was skeptical of greens for breakfast,
right?
But the Emporium, that made me a believer.
Yeah, I had that. I was talking to some folks who are coming on a fairly regular basis and says hello and got to know them a little bit. And they said, we come here for the breakfast greens because you're the only place that serves them.
The smashed potatoes.
Smashed potatoes. So a little story about the smashed potatoes. And I'm sorry, I'm going to forget his name, but he was a previous mayor. And I got talking to him one day and we just set up a time to have lunch. So I sat down, somebody who's been in town. I was new to town at the time. Maybe it was Wade, yeah. And he started talking about some things he's doing in his leisurely days, and he's was playing around with some spices. So I said, well, geez, maybe there's something we could do together. So he worked with our culinary team, our executive chef, and they put together this spice that we use on our smashed potatoes that I'll tell you, they're the best smashed potatoes you're ever going to have, because not only, it's, I've had people say, what's with these potatoes? So on the menu, mayor's potatoes is what we have, that we connected with a former mayor, and no better way to connect with the community through food.
Yeah. It's neat too in the Emporium too. It's, this is flipping back over to dinner, but you got all the wine bottles. You can walk through the wine shop down there, and pick out your bottle of wine.
Yeah. The wine market is curated by Sarah O'Neill. She's our lead bartender, and she's been at the Elizabeth since we opened. And she has a real passion for it. She loves the whole sense of getting just that right wine for you. So if you're wondering about, I don't drink a ton of wine, so I always go to Sarah and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And she's never wrong when I get home and enjoy that wine. So the wine market is something that is also, not only is it aesthetically really beautiful, it's also really fantastic when you open a bottle.
And having somebody who can guide you. You can say, help me out. A lot of us can relate with that.
Yeah.
I do like wine. Can I pick out the right wine to pair with a meal? Absolutely not.
Right.
So having somebody there to give some direction, I think it's just all the hospitality. It flows throughout the entire place.
Yeah. And that's, that's the fun, right? That's the fun side of hospitality, because we have plenty of other things that we do in our day that it gets you through the day. And in the end, however, it's that connecting with, so I was talking to a guest and I said, have you picked up some vinyl for your room? And they go, oh yeah, I've been listening to Fleetwood Mac all night, and I've got the other side to go tomorrow. And so it's just that really nice feeling that they're having a memory. And again, if you're listening to a song, there's probably a memory beyond that, not just flipping through the albums. Then you go up and you place it on the turntable, you bring that needle over, you drop it down, you listen to the song, and you're being transported somewhere else. And that's what I think that's what I recognize as one of the things that's perhaps most critical to the experience at the Elizabeth, is that all the spaces and all the experiences you can have in this 164 room hotel, that you just won't have in most any other place. We were also voted one of the, and I'm still trying to figure this one out a little bit. It was the top 100 hotels in travel leisure in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're being recognized in this wonderful little town of Fort Collins. And that's the other part of it, right? It's in this fantastic location where you have a half a block, and then you have all of this to discover and all this to find. So the part of our success is all of the sole proprietors, all of the small businesses that are in Old Town and in Fort Collins, because we're part of that experience. And they're part of our guest experience. So the symbiotic benefit of us having a hotel in Old Town, and then us having those places that we can send our guests to. The Silver Grill, listen, we have guests, they come, they've never been here before, and they said, I've been told I should go to the Silver Grill. And we're happy to have that happen, because again, it's another one of those unique experiences that you can have at the Elizabeth in Fort Collins. So each one of those little bits will create that opportunity for people to come back, and they're interested in coming back. As a matter of fact, I was reading in McKinsey, they're talking about now that the trend in travel is to move away from the heavy Denvers, Chicago, New York, and going to places that are unknown, right? So that idea that you come up from Denver to Fort Collins, there seems to be a trend that's moving in that direction where there's that opportunity to find something a little bit different, a little quieter, and a little more unique.
Yeah. And I think just approachability, walkability.
Yeah.
I don't think people want to get in their car and drive anywhere. And that might seem obvious, but I also think that people don't want to, maybe in an urban area like Denver, name the urban area, walk 8 to 13 blocks in an environment that they are not familiar with.
Right.
Because, those environments provide different safety challenges and things of that nature. At minimum, it's just a real unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, when you're talking about the Silver Grill, it's somebody who's walking out the front of and then walking around the corner, and then they're at the Silver Grill.
Yeah.
Or they're going a half block this way or 3/4 of a block the other way, and they're going to one of the other great options for coffee, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah, Whiskey Stills is a great location. It's quiet.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's really like tops of the top. For me.
And it's the full package, right?
Yeah.
It's the right size, really personal.
Feels so cozy in there.
So cozy, and it's just, you feel like you're in your living room and somebody's bringing you this fantastic meal.
What do you order there? What's your go-to?
Here's the thing. I because of years of being thoughtful about how I eat, I don't generally eat red meat and steak, but that's what I get there.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was wondering where you were going with that, because I'm like, I don't know if this is the place for you.
Yeah.
But it is so good that's where you order it.
Exactly. So it's always just right. And the flavors are fantastic. And of course a whiskey flight doesn't hurt, while you're there. So I think that there's real intention behind what's happening there. I had somebody say to me years ago, I was at one of the properties that I was at, and they said, they were talking about, this is really, I was probably too young. I was definitely too young to appreciate what was being said, but they said, I just don't feel that there's love in your food. And I paused for a minute, and it was interesting because at that time we were having a transition going on in our kitchen. So we had a new executive chef, and we had some new sous and that sort of thing. So there's a pretty big transition happening. And it wasn't that there wasn't love in the food, but the subconscious hadn't been able to be developed so that the food was being made in a way which was more intentional. It was being thought about every step of the way. This is when I was one of the health resorts, and there's a lot of very careful measuring that you have to make when you weigh every piece of protein and on down line. So it's very carefully placed on the dish and on down line. So, but now I appreciate it, because I think that when you have somebody who's really caring about what they're doing, because there is a transition, there's a feeling, right, that's going on when you're preparing food. And it's also a feeling and that feeling will carry into the experience that person's having when they're eating. It's one of the most intimate things that we do in our lives is eat somebody else's food, because we're trusting all kinds of aspects associated with that. And I think we can all think about a relative of ours, whether it's our mom or our grandmother or whoever that is. And there was a different feeling about that food for all of the reasons, but the care and if you will, love that goes into that. And I think that's part of the experience at the Elizabeth.
Without question. Yeah. And it's, the way this whole foodie scene is just kind of evolving in Old Town, and clearly the Emporium at the Elizabeth is a huge part of that, is exciting. Is exciting for me to watch.
Yeah.
We talked about the whiskey still. I can't move on from that without mentioning the elk steak.
Yeah.
With the mashed potatoes is incredible. Try that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other spots? Let's just kind of go in broad Old Town. We're talking about the walk. This is all walkable, right? This is all
Yeah,
like
it's all right
this
there.
amazing walkable place where even the alleyways are paved and well lit, and it just feels like everything's interconnected. And it's a new adventure everywhere you go. You can walk down an alley and find a great place to kind of duck into.
Right.
What are some of your spots that are maybe not as well known as the Silver Grill, for example?
I'll be honest with you. I don't get out much,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll say that certainly. Here's what I would encourage people, and this is what I encourage our guests to do. They say, well, "Where should I go?" I said, "Okay, well, what are you looking for?" So then you go through the Thai, or you go through the Mexican and the various Italian, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I would have you go to some place you haven't gone. You don't normally eat, because you're going to get a great meal here. And I think there's some people are like, I don't know if I want to trust you, but you don't have to trust me. You just trust those who are at the restaurant. Little is
Yeah,
fantastic.
Little on Mountain is great. I feel like you should give people my cell phone number, and I really enjoy giving it, so you can do that if you ever want to in the future. But Little on Mountain, we can't
Yeah,
live on without
and
mentioning
that's a hidden gem, and I think
Yep.
because it's not downtown, it's not that it's not right there. I'll oftentimes recommend that, and that's probably about as unique experience as you can get associated with food, with it being right in front of you, and again that the menu changes daily, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many things that happen there that you would that's a full on experience.
Ooh, here's a quick hack for Little on Mountain. If you are eating there, my wife and I went there recently for her birthday. And this isn't because it was her birthday. This is something they do that I don't know if very many people know about, or maybe they won't do this in the future depending on how many people are listening. But they have a great wine selection there, a really great wine selection. And, we talked about, I don't really know what wine to order. So they bring out, they line up 6 glasses and they pour little samples of each one. So you can sample the reds. You can decide which one you want. It's just such a hospitality thing to do. It's part of the great experience there.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's right. I think that, and it's we use it, and I think it's overused, but it's still part of our vernacular when it comes to places, right? What's your differentiator? And each place has a little bit of that. And you don't have to, but here it's just natural. There's people who have, again, because they're sole proprietors. This is not and I think that, the opportunity with Autograph Collection with Marriott, we don't have to follow all of the guidelines. We have to follow a lot of them, but we have freedom to do and have our spaces be different. And I think that's true with sole proprietors, right? They have nobody telling them this is how you have to do it. So the creativity you'll feel when you're in Fort Collins, I think with all the retailers, as well as the food, the bars, et cetera, and all the breweries, of course, everybody. We have one in our back, right in our back alley, Firehouse Alley, Salt Road, and it's a new one, so it's a new flavor, it's a new thought process, and on that line. So I think that's another big part of Fort Collins is there's a lot of very creative people here, and I think it attracts more creative people. And the thing that I also found is, and this is not always the case, is willing to share. Right, willing to share their experience, willing to share the successes, willing to share. You might want to try this versus that, and there was no hesitation when I arrived. There wasn't anybody who wasn't happy to have a conversation with me and share their successes and failures and how Old Town works and how Fort Collins works and what are the opportunities with CSU and what are the opportunities with some of the larger business and online. So there's a trying to keep that but that's not what it is. It's very generous.
Yeah, there's an authenticity here.
Yeah.
And everything has just kind of evolved so naturally too. You mentioned the Salt Road Brewery right behind your hotel. What an amazing place that is. I mean, just that alleyway behind there is beautiful, and it's just, plays right into the walkability, connects right to the main Old Town Square.
Yeah.
But, that building, must have been roughly 15 years ago. Somebody who was, another real estate broker in town, Ed Stoner. He's a friend. He was a mayor long ago. But that was a like a Goodwill space.
Hmm.
Just kind of an old, like there
Oh,
wasn't
right.
anything going on there.
Right. I heard about that actually. Yeah.
There wasn't anything going on there. And I'm looking at it with him, and he's like, hey, Greg, can you find someone to maybe come and buy this building? Ultimately, there was a deal done with the person who owns it now, the owner of Illegal Pete's, who then has Illegal Pete's in the front, has his cool shop, his cool restaurant there, and then, made the back this brewery. But all these things have evolved through these sole proprietors, through these creative people who have shared a passion for the community. And yeah, no, they're not tied to anyone's rules or anyone's outline. And I think that's where the magic happens. And that's where the magic has happened here. And I think will continue to happen.
And I think that I will say that there is a part of that for us at the Elizabeth is that I think in particular because of the potential of the Elizabeth, with the resort feeling. So when I first arrived, it was July of 22, and I was overwhelmed by the whole dog situation here.
Yeah.
The love of dogs, the not only the love of dogs, but the passion and everything dog in Fort Collins kind of overwhelmed me a bit.
Sure.
So, but lean into it, right? So, 3 years ago we started dog days in February weekends.
Oh, cool.
So, and the idea is again bringing the community together at a time when not necessarily are they getting out, and would maybe need something to draw them out. So, every weekend in February we have had Yappy Hour from 4 to 6 in Magic Rat. And then on Saturday, we have an educational program. So this year we have a group from Habit coming in talking about service dogs and how that whole process works and what that looks like. And we have actually the Canine unit with the Fort Collins Police Department coming in. And a variety of other programs that associate with, how you can be a better dog owner and how you and all things dogs. And then on Sundays we have Amber Kwan who comes in and does Drink with Your Dog brewery manners. So she helps you train your dog to be able to be appropriate when you're going to a brewery, because breweries are it's okay for dogs to be in group breweries. But so every weekend in February that's happening, and the idea, and the first year we did it, people were like, this is so fantastic. I don't go out in the wintertime and I can be here with my dog and I can be here and meeting other people with their dogs. And so the idea, again, is to be a community space and have a reason to come to the Elizabeth beyond just our sort of standard schedule.
Right. I've noticed these things happening a lot more. I'm realizing maybe now more than ever, it's not just a coincidence of when you started at the Elizabeth, and I've been going there for a long time, but it seems like you've had a big hand in maybe some of these things of really indexing even further, leaning even further in the community and getting these things going.
Yeah. It's part of what makes my day more enjoyable. So having this creative outlet that we've been able to, and we have these fantastic spaces, right? So we need to get people to come in and enjoy them. The other thing that we did is we we're connected to the hospitality program. So I was just talking with Dr. Sue Kim, and this will be probably the 5th or 6th year even before I got here.
This is the hospitality program at CSU.
Yeah, she's the professor and director of the program. So she brings her class to the hotel, and we give them a tour and we talk about hospitality. And we've had 4 or 5 classes, one from rate management to a freshman class and on down the line. So we really open up the hotel to the college. And we started a scholarship program last year. And what was happening, and this is sort of maybe a longer story short, is we were buying amenities for guests coming on homecoming and graduation weekend. But we found that it was a blanket or a hat or a scarf or something to that effect. But they were oftentimes being left behind. So the value perception wasn't there. So instead of doing that, we diverted those funds to a scholarship for a CSU student. And so we're donating $10,000 a year for the next 5 years that would secure a scholarship for our student coming in. It feels much more meaningful, right? It's more intentional.
Absolutely.
And if you're coming to the Elizabeth Hotel, there's a pretty good chance you don't need another scarf. You probably have several of those at home.
Sure.
So as a result, it's those kinds of things that we're doing to create not only a gesture towards CSU, but really we have our students that are with us and finding ways to connect our students to us as well, and vice versa. So, Dr. Kim has been great. She's one who not only encourages the students, but also brings them to us, which, and it's fun because the students are just amazed, right? They might have gone to a few hotels, but not
this
like
hotel.
Elizabeth.
Sure.
So, and I think it helps them aspire, right? Aspire and also look to their career in a way that might be a little bit different than what they thought about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. I mean, it's safe to say the move to this area has been a successful one for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just a very comfortable place to be. And I've traveled some, but this has as much a home feel as it does anywhere else I've been.
I love hearing that. I mean, as we start to land the plane here, what's some advice that you would give to anyone who might be considering a move to this area?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of things that are not going to surprise you if you think about what we've been talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you're going to immediately feel comfortable, which would then give you the opportunity to start discovering, start just reaching out, go places that you don't even know what's there. Because I think it'll help you decide, is Windsor a better place? Is Greeley a better place? Is, being closer to Denver better for you? Is it better to be here on the northern end of Fort Collins or the southern side? But I think the piece that I would say that it is come in with a wide view, because there's so much that you can figure out by doing that, and then determine where you might settle. And actually, I'm remiss to not say one of the biggest attractions for me is all the recreation paths. I mean, the safety of being on a path instead of on a roadway for biking. My kids were here, and I have a granddaughter who's 1, and brought them to where you can find there's some llamas that are near us, just down the road, and the prairie dogs are popping up out of the ground. I mean, it was just again, one of those special little moments that create a memory. And I'm sure this sweet little child someday will say, well, remember we went and found the prairie dogs, and let's go find the prairie dogs again. Right. So it's those little pieces that, and you can get so close, right? I mean, they're everywhere, but nonetheless, for somebody from New England, prairie dogs are a special little thing for me. And I'm up in the morning, and the prairie dogs are, up with me and on down the line. So, and I think, some of the health wellness side of things, I think it's a pretty popular idea and understanding now, but being out in nature is one of the biggest things that's a factor associated with health and well-being. They even have found a study not too long ago where there was children who are becoming nearsighted because they haven't been outside enough to have their eye lens expand horizontally. Because if you're indoors too much and you're staring at something too little for too long, and you don't go outside, it doesn't create your peripheral vision, doesn't develop your peripheral vision. So more importantly, you should be outside playing anyway. But the reality is that there's also some risk factors associated with, and we know all this, right? So there's just one more reason to go outside and play. And that's how I grew up, and that's how we tried to raise our kids. But it was you kids come home when the streetlights turn on, right? That's a different era, and maybe not quite capable of doing now. But I do think being outdoors and the ease and safety of being outdoors here is another huge factor.
Well, as intentional as the city has been about that too. A previous episode of the show was with Mike Calhoun, who has been in charge of the parks and the trails, the whole trail system for over 30 years. And if you listen to that show, you'll hear the pride he takes and just how all in he is in the city, the trails, the parks. So if anyone's interested to listen to those episodes, enjoy the parks, enjoy the trails, get outside.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn more about the Elizabeth, where's the best place to go? Is there a website we can direct people to? I'll put this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's elizabeth.com. And in there, you'll be able to find all the outlet, Magic Rat, Sunset, what's happening as far as the schedule, what the bands are for the weekend, and any special events we have going on. So another one that we're working on right now, which we expect will come in the spring, April, May, is a film series. So lo and behold, from one connection to the next connection, there's a fairly robust group of independent filmmakers in Fort Collins and northern Colorado. And I have one individual I'm talking to right now, and they're working on developing a series that we would have independent films shown, portions of, or the whole thing, and then a Q&A and basically a fireside chat after that. So where the idea come from, how'd you do this? And this individual who's organizing it, how we got connected was we were on a panel at Front Range Community College, and she was talking about her documentary that she did on women referees in the NFL. And I thought, more people should know about that. That's a really curious, right? That's a really interesting topic. Yeah, to talk about. So we got talking, we had lunch, and then again, this took off, and there's this organization that she's put together of a variety of about 5 different filmmakers that are going to be presenting in Magic Rat on the third Wednesday. We've picked that. We know that. We don't know exactly the start date, but watch for those kinds of things, and that'll always be on the website.
Well, you will need to email me.
Yeah.
When you do have the start date, because we'll put that out on all the Selling Fort Collins social media. I'll be there. My wife will be there. Our 6 and 7-year-old might not be there. That might not be there. They're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But we'll be there. We'll invite all of our friends. That sounds amazing. I mean, in the meantime, you'll see me, probably enjoying the breakfast greens and the smashed potatoes in the morning, or an espresso martini up at the Sunset Lounge in the evening.
That's great.
This is a pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
you taking the time.
Yeah,
Carl.
It was really nice to talk with you, Greg, and thanks for inviting me. It's been fun to talk about the Elizabeth and spend some time with you.
All right, everybody. Well, check out theelizabeth.com. Highly recommend staying there. And Carl, cheers.
Yeah, you as well.